Welcome everyone, this is Nelson Dellis, US Memory Champ with Ben Pridmore, three-time US World Memory Champion, yes?
Yep.
And one of the legends of memory sports, and I have the privilege to talk to him today and ask him a bunch of questions, which I hope he answers. And so, Ben, how you doing?
I'm doing good, thanks. We've spent the last 20 minutes or so trying to get Skype to work. This is how technical I am.
There you go.
I turned off my internet connection while I was trying to plug a lamp in to light the room up a bit. So,
okay,
but we're working now.
It looks very nice. A very nice setting. Where are you? You're in England, Derby?
I'm in England, yeah, Belper, just outside Derby.
Okay. Is that where you where did you grow up?
I grew up in Boston, not the American Boston, the real Boston, the one in England.
All the American viewers are like, "What? There's a Boston before Boston?" So what's up? What's new? What have you been doing today? What did you do today?
Today I went to work, which is a horrible thing to have to say, but
oh no,
I've just started a new job, which is quite cool. I play about with numbers all day, but it's important to have something like that to do. So it pays me money, so I can go to memory competitions and things.
That's true. So your background is in accounting, is that right?
That's right. Yes, I'm a financial analyst.
Okay. Well, I would trust you with numbers, so that's a nice thing.
Should.
Do you tell people? Do people at your job know what you do?
Unfortunately, I've just started a new job with people who knew all about me. They researched me. They found my videos on the internet and everything. So I go in there with the reputation of being a genius. It's terrible.
That's interesting. That's not a bad thing. So I have so many questions for you. I never really get the time to sit down with you and chat and hear about just memory sports from your mind. But I followed your blog for years, and when I got into the sport in say 2009, that was your prime, I think, right?
That was pretty much my golden age, yeah. 2008, 2009, I was completely on top of the world.
Yeah, but you've been in the sport for when did you start?
My first competition was 2000, the World Championship that year.
Okay, and how did you do?
I came 16th out of 20 competitors, which was actually quite good because I knew nothing about memory techniques or anything like that when I went along. I went to the competition basically just because I was in the area. I had a couple of days to spare. I wanted to see what it was like. I didn't actually believe there was such a thing as memory techniques.
Yeah.
I'd heard people talk about the major system and things. I assumed it was something people had made up to sell books. So I went in there reading and repeating to myself and assuming that was what everybody else did. It was only by talking to some of the other competitors they started to convince me perhaps there is actually something in this whole mental techniques thing. So I sat down and tried it, and I've been addicted ever since.
That's cool. And then, so that competition in 2000, who was the winner? Was it
It was Dominic O'Brien. He was unquestionably the best in the world back in those days. Andy Bell came second. He was the closest challenger.
That was like maybe the first rival, right? Those two guys?
Yeah, they were arch rivals back since the mid-90s, I think, when Andy first came along in 95 or something. Okay. Dominic, of course, was the champion right from the start.
Yeah.
In 91, he'd won it comfortably by miles every time. Andy won it 1 year when Dominic wasn't there, but otherwise Dominic was pretty much unstoppable.
Okay, so Andy won it once, right? Just once?
Andy won it in 98 when Dominic wasn't there. Then he finally got his act together in 2002 and he blew everyone away. And he won that year and also the next year after that.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, we had him at the Extreme Championships a few years ago, and I'd seen a couple videos, but for the most part seemed like an enigma. Like, I didn't really know much about him, but he's a cool guy.
He's a real character. Back in 2000, when I first met him, he had long hair in a ponytail. He was really stylish, and
nice.
The other competitors were all wearing business suits and things in those days because it was a very swanky kind of posh competition.
Yeah.
Andy, of course, would be wearing jeans and a t-shirt. He was the rock and roll world memory champion. That's how he described himself.
Very cool. And so, like, when you went in there, what kind of was it? The same 10 disciplines? I think there was poetry as well, right?
There was poetry. There was no
abstract.
There was no let me think. What's the word? Historic dates. There were just 9 disciplines then. Historic dates came in a couple of years later, I think.
And then, so they had abstract images too?
There were no abstract images, no.
Okay.
It was just 9 disciplines.
I see.
There had been Images, which was photos being projected on a screen with an old-fashioned slide projector, but they couldn't get the technology to work apparently, so they dropped that a few years previously.
Interesting. Okay, and then
it's a different age. It really was.
Yeah, and then the spoken numbers was what, 2 seconds every digit.
Spoken numbers was 2 seconds. Yeah, one every 2 seconds. Gunter Karsten did a perfect 400 that year in the year 2000. That's why they had to increase it to one every second. It's become too easy.
That's crazy. And then the poetry, how did they score that? Do you remember? Was it 1 point for every...
That was a really complicated scoring system. I think it was 1 point for a word, plus 1 point for a capital letter, and 1 point for something to do with punctuation, I think.
Okay, that's similar, I think, to the US way. You get a point for every little nuance, and then it's per row. So if you miss some tiny little thing in a row, you just get 0 for the row, and you can...
Yeah, I think that's how it worked.
Okay.
The problem is that they were translating it into different languages, into German, which meant that we had a situation where something that was 4 points worth in English was also translated to 4 points in German, even though it was one simple word. So it didn't make any sense, and it was unfair. Plus, the poetry was Tony Buzan's own poetry, which is fantastically weird. And he's famous for many things, but I don't think he's ever going to be famous for his poetry.
I would assume that those poems were largely about himself, maybe.
Not really. They were abstract and unusual things. Okay. Like the line, "What kind of butterflies grow from trains?"
Oh, geez. Okay, yeah.
Actually, the poem in 2000, to give him credit, was actually rather good. I still remember part of it now. It was "Our Old Clock" or something like that. It was a traditional sort of English, talking about your childhood kind of thing, about a clock and telling time and that kind of thing. It was rather a good poem, actually. Okay. This stuff isn't, but that one was actually, I really liked that one. And I got the top score in the poem that year, which was really what got me hooked to start with. Yeah, just for a few years, actually. I had a reputation as being the one who was good at poems.
Good at poems.
In nice. Competitions. Interesting. Then the likes of Astrid Plessel came along and who sort of blew everybody away with poetry scores, and I never quite recovered from that. There was that brief time when I was the one who was good at poetry, and if I could learn how to do numbers and cards and things, I might go on to do something good.
Yeah. And then, so when did you start training? So I'm guessing after that competition, you were probably really pumped, and then started learning some of this stuff? Yeah?
Yeah, actually, it was the night of the first day of the competition. The World Championship was a 2-day thing in those days. Okay. After the first day of competition, I went out, I bought one of Tony Buzan's books. I learned about the major system. I drew up a list of images for memorising cards. I sat down and practised it that night.
Wow.
And so that was the day I started practising.
Got it. So then, how did you perform in... so there was a point where you started doing your bend system stuff, right? What year was that?
That was 2003.
Okay. So pretty soon after.
Yeah, it's early in 2003. I sat down and worked out. It started out just being a 1,000-digit system as opposed to the 100 that I used to do. And then I decided I'd expand it a bit. I'd bring in an image for every 2 cards and for every 10 binary digits as well and make some kind of master system. It was sort of a strange moment of inspiration that I got there. And I sat down and worked on that for about 6 months.
And I'm always curious, I mean, because now, there's the 2-card system and 3-digit system for numbers is pretty standard. Back then, though, was anybody talking about it? Was anybody trying it and failing? Did anyone have a system like that at all?
I don't recall anyone ever mentioning the possibility of a 2-card system until I decided to do it. I'm sure somebody had the idea before. I'd never heard anyone try it before. Yeah. It was new, it was exciting. I know nowadays people take it for granted, everybody does it, but back then when I said I was having an image for every 2 cards, everyone was somewhat blown away by even the possibility of it.
I mean, that must be a cool thing for you to feel like you you had an idea that nobody in the entire world had thought about, right? And
it is quite cool, yes. I mean, looking at it in perspective, I'm just sort of a step along the way to the wonderful things that people are doing with memory nowadays. But it was good to be sort of that step, to be a pioneer in that kind of way. I liked it.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to complain at first when people started calling it the Ben system. I said, that's a stupid name. I hate it. Don't do that. But then people stopped saying it, and I realised I actually did quite like it. So ever since then, I've encouraged people to say the Ben system.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've spent so many hours sitting down convincing myself that I'm going to come up with the next Ben system, something that nobody's thought of before, but it's tough, man, and I have nothing to show for it. So I think that's really cool. It's a cool thing to own.
It gets tougher and tougher as people get better and better.
Yeah.
You have to really go mad with systems nowadays to do something new and exciting.
I know. What are your thoughts on this shadow system that Alex and Lance and Johannes kind of use?
I'll be brutally honest with you, I don't understand it.
Okay.
I've tried to understand what Lance is talking about when he goes on about his shadow system. I've read the things he's posted on the internet at length. I still can't quite get it to click in my mind what on earth they're going on about.
Yeah, Lance's explanation is a bit tricky, but Alex explains it pretty well. I mean, the idea is just using variable images per location, so it changes a lot.
It's an interesting idea. I mean, if it works for you, do it. That's what I've always said to people. The thing about memory techniques, as I've said over and over again in the last 15 years, is different people's brains work differently. Yeah, you know, if you can come up with something that's good for you, then that's great. But that doesn't necessarily mean that anybody else is going to ever be able to do it.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it. And even if you may be doing something simpler than what's out there, and it may be the thing that sets you a world record. It's really what is your comfort and what you practice the most, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. There's people out there who still use very simple systems and do amazing things with them.
Yeah, because the thing is with these larger systems, right, you have to spend more time learning them because they need to be natural. It can't be like you're trying to figure out what this represents. It needs to be instant. The more there are, the harder that is to get it instant, right?
Yeah, it's practice, you know. There's still nobody found a way around sitting down and practicing.
No.
Nobody's going to win the world championship without sitting. I do get asked questions quite a lot still by beginners. They think I've got some secret method I can teach it to them and snap just like that. They can memorise a 5,000-digit number without any effort. Yeah. Unfortunately, no. It takes work.
Yeah, that's true. So I'm fascinated by the history stuff, and you've been around long enough to know all these stories. I hope you don't mind talking about it.
I always love to talk about history. I am the old man of memory competitions nowadays. So whenever we get together in a pub after a competition or, you know, in a cafe during lunch break, I always go on and on about the olden days of memory competitions. I think that's my role in these things nowadays.
Yeah, you should consider writing a book about just the history of the sport. Have you thought about that?
To be brutally honest, I've got to stop saying to be brutally honest. That's like one of my stock phrases. I say it even when it doesn't mean anything.
It sounds good. In America, we never hear it, so it's good.
Again. I've just realised I'm saying it. Anyway, as I was about to say, a few years ago I decided to sit down and write a book. It was going to be called Naughty Memories, as in Noughty, a complete history of memory competition in the 2000s, in the noughties. But I never got really past the first chapter. One day I'll sit down and finish it maybe. But that was the golden age of memory competitions, and it needs a proper book about it.
I agree. Yeah, I would read that. I would buy that. So what else? So then you started working on the system, the Ben system, in 2003. But did you use it immediately, and did you see a dip in your score, or did you wait a little bit and then?
Yeah, I started using it immediately. I didn't want to carry on using the old system at the same time as I was working on the new one. I just wanted to get the new one in my head as quickly as possible. And yeah, my scores, especially in things like speed cards, went downhill fast. And, you know, it gradually picked back up again once I got more familiar with the images, with the system.
Got it.
It was actually quite a long time before speed cards I was able to get back to the level I was before.
Yeah.
Using the new system. With the longer ones, it worked a lot better with the hour-long disciplines, which I practiced a lot in those days. I was 12 years ago, I was mad at practicing. I was spending every waking hour practicing. I never quite got back to that level after I won the World Championship the first time in 2004. But before that, I was really dedicated to getting things clicking in my head.
It's tough. When you win, it happened to me too. Like, it's hard to keep that going. You can maybe do it a couple more years, but then it's never the same.
Yeah, I think it happens to everybody. I mean, after I won in 2004, my motivation went flat completely. I sort of struggled my way back eventually. It took me a couple of years. I got back up to the top levels just because I was still finding it exciting. But since really 2008, I won again the next year, 2009, but I was basically coasting on the work I'd done previously. I hadn't improved at all. I was lucky to get through and win again. And since then, I've just never been able to sit down with the dedication I have and get back into it, which is quite sad. But it's still fun to watch the amazing things other people are doing, so wildly surpassing anything I ever achieved in the past.
But let me talk about that for a second, because I'm experiencing a similar thing, like really badly. It's hard. It's hard to accept the fact that you used to be able to sit down and motivate yourself, and here you are. You know, you and I, we're wiser, we're older, we have championships under our belt. You'd think we know that we can do it. We've done it, but there's just something you can't. I don't know what it is. It's
exactly. If I could pinpoint it, you know, that could be a great breakthrough, and I could do something about it. Yeah. All I can say is that, you know, it affects everybody. Dominic O'Brien said to me, you know, he just can't motivate himself to sit down and work on these things anymore. I'm sure it's the same for everybody else who's won the World Championship or the US Championship or anything in the past. Yeah. It gets to you in the end.
Yeah, yeah. So then, after you started using and seeing good results from your system, was it you and Andy? Were you guys the two then? Because I guess Dominic had bowed out a little bit.
Dominic had bowed out a little bit, yeah. I mean, when Andy won it so spectacularly in 2002, I think everybody said, "Oh, Dominic's had it. He's passed his best." 2003, the World Championship. That year, it was in Malaysia. It was in November, I think it was. It's still one of my absolute all-time favourite memory competitions. I loved it.
Is that the one that there's a documentary about from the BBC?
No, I don't think they made a documentary that year.
Okay, I'm thinking about the one with Ed Cook running in the mountains.
No, that was later. That was 2007.
I see. Okay.
2003, there was Dominic and Andy. There was Gunter, who was always close there. There was Dr. Yip from Malaysia, Yip Sui Tree. He was one of the big names in those days.
That was the dictionary guy, right?
That's the one, yeah. He memorised the Oxford English Dictionary. He actually didn't come to the World Championship that year, which is strange because it was basically in his hometown. But he always said he only came to these competitions because he brought his little students along. He'd have sort of hordes of young Malaysians following after him. So he felt he didn't need to come to this one, but he always did so well. But there was also Jan Foreman, who was Danish-German. He was a great guy. He was a lot of fun to hang out with. He's a comedian in his real life, so he was always a life and soul of the party. Sure. And there was the newcomers. There was me and there was Astrid Plessel from Austria. So there were the six of us. So we were all fighting it out all the way through this competition. Andy won it in the end. Astrid came second. I came third. But the whole epic struggle between it. Yeah. It was like the beginning of a new era of competition.
I can imagine, yeah. And was Ed Cook there yet or not yet?
No, Ed had competed for the first time in 2003 at the Mind Sports Olympiad competition. Got it. And actually, he did come to the World Championship. I was wrong there, yeah. Ed was there that year, yeah. He was just beginning.
Got it. And then, so when did you finally win? Was it 2006?
I won the next year, 2004.
Okay, nice. Single-handedly, or was it like close?
No, I won by absolute miles in 2004. It's Gunter hadn't been training. He was well off form back that year. I think he came ninth in the end. He was a long way off the pace. It was me against Astrid basically. Okay. Andy sort of had been going off on his own, organising his own competitions, falling out with the organisers, and he turned up to the World Championship after all, but he hadn't been training at all, so he wasn't really in the running either. It was basically me against Astrid, and I won it pretty clearly by a fair distance in the end.
Nice. And so I remember Andy talking about that with me when he came to the XMT, that he tried to do a competition similar in the sense that it was like different than the World Championships.
Yeah.
Were you there? Did you go to it?
I went to it, yes. Okay. The Memory World Cup, it was in Germany.
And what was the premise? Like, how did it work? Do you remember?
I think you broke up a bit there. What were you asking?
Oh, just how did it go? Like, how did it work?
It was the idea about it was that it would all be numbers and cards. There wouldn't be anything like words or names and faces and things. It would all be the kind of things that you do with memory systems. There were longer recall times so that you weren't sort of struggling to recall in a fixed time. You basically had as long as you could possibly need. And so it was all about that. And he was going to do, if he'd gone on and done more competitions, there would have been speed things like 50 digits as quickly as possible. Cool. On a computer, I think the plan was, but he never got that far. Okay. But the competition itself, there were only about half a dozen of us took part in it. Oh, okay. Maybe more. I think it was about 10, in fact. But it was exciting. It was a lot of fun. It was me against Jan Foreman. We were the main competitors, and I won it in the end.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. And then, so I want to see this memory of yours in 2009 when you went to the United States. Do you remember that?
I think so. Yes.
So that's when I first met you. Do you remember that or no?
Brutally honest. God, saying it again. No, I don't.
You don't?
I don't actually remember that. It's funny. You sent me a Facebook message saying to arrange this interview, and I noticed that the first thing you sent me was in 2009.
Really?
Saying, hello, I met you at the at the US Memory Championships.
Oh, man, I got to look at that.
About Rudiger Gam, the mental calculation guy.
Yeah.
I can't see that I ever replied. I'm sure I must have done, but there's no reply on Facebook. Perhaps I sent you an email or something, or perhaps I forgot about it. I do that.
That's so funny. That's cool.
But yeah, I don't actually remember the competition at all in 2009. I know I went to the US Championships 2, maybe 3 times, because I like to just go along and watch it. I was certainly there in the year Josh Four won it. Was that 2006? 7?
Yeah.
6?
6, I think.
6,
yeah.
Maybe even 5.
I think he was there in 2005.
Yeah, that's right. It was
Ed
6.
Cook was there, and then he won in 2006.
I was there that time as well, yeah.
Nice. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't remember a whole lot either, but I do remember after the competition I wanted to speak to you. We sat down, I think it was me, Brad, Zup, and maybe a third guy, and you were sitting in the chair across from us, and I was like, show me how you do the cards. And you literally picked up a deck and went through 6 or 12 cards and put it down, and you just started saying like Ace of Diamonds, 2 of Hearts, whatever. And I remember that moment. I walked from, that was Union Square in kind of downtown New York. I walked to my friend's where I was staying, which was in Upper East Side. I walked maybe almost 80 blocks just talking to my friends on the phone, like, I met this guy. You know, I didn't do too well in the competition, but I remember that moment just being the moment where I was hooked to this thing. And I
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, thanks. And thanks for remembering it. So let's talk about what's next. I mean, you're working. I know you're probably one of the few or the only memory person who gets the coolest projects. Like people come and approach you. You did a music video for DJ Shadow, which is my favorite. You did something cool with the Bilbao Museum, yeah?
Yep.
What else?
I get strange offers like this just every now and then. I think those 2 you've just mentioned are actually the coolest ones I've ever done, the music video and the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao.
Yeah.
Just because they had, puppets and animations and things going on in the background.
I think it has to do with just you have such a... You're just a character overall. Your accent is interesting. Your background is interesting. You're into comics and cartoons. Your images are funny. Yeah, they must be super drawn to that.
I guess so. But actually, I think my voice is horrible. This is why I hate doing phone interviews and things, because the only thing you can hear is my dreadful voice.
It sounds...
But Americans always like it. They think, oh, wow, gee whiz, he's got an accent.
Exactly, yeah. So wait, I'd love to know more about the DJ Shadow thing. I think we've talked about it a little bit, but I'm a huge fan of DJ Shadow and, what's her name? Little Dragon. So they filmed that. How many takes did it take?
I honestly lost count. They did a lot of takes, because obviously the whole thing was one single continuous take.
All continuous,
yeah. It was wonderful, but it took a lot of tries. The problem, first of all, was the mechanical hummingbird that started off. It was meant to fly by itself. It starts with a guy holding it and fuzzing it around. It's meant to be a remote control thing that they would fly it around in a circle and then into the snake's mouth. They spent basically all morning trying to get it, and it just wouldn't work. So they gave up on that in the end. Then after that, they did maybe a dozen takes over the course of a day. I was spending the whole thing squatting down inside this cardboard case.
Yeah.
I didn't get to see any of the exciting things that were happening.
So for those who don't know, the Ben did a music video for... basically, he's memorized a deck of cards, and the music video is a live reenactment of what he's visualizing. So there's a big hummingbird, and it's in all these different rooms, and it goes into a snake playing a boomerang, what do you call it?
Tambourine.
Tambourine, etc., etc. And it's really cool. And at the end, Ben jumps out of the cake and kind of recites the whole story.
It's funny, after all of these takes, they used one of the earliest ones in the final production.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I think they like that best because the cake just collapses slightly right at the end.
Yeah, that's a funny part.
It was a perfect ending. The video is just sensational. I loved it so much.
It's good. I will watch it just for fun every, few months or something, just because it's a good song and it's a good video.
And it is also a perfect illustration of what really does happen in our minds when we're doing these things. We try to explain it, but that is the only time people have really been able to put it into a visual form that they can show us.
Yeah. Now, did you ever meet any of the artists?
No, I didn't.
No.
I just met the directors. DJ Shadow sent a guy along from America, someone from his production team or something like that, but he wasn't there himself, and neither were Little Dragon.
And who was the person, whose idea was it? I mean, did DJ Shadow know about this and he was like, we got to get Ben?
No, it was the two directors, Ewan Jones Morris and Casey Redmond. They came up with the idea. I don't know how they'd heard about me. They'd sort of stumbled across it on the internet somewhere and decided that it would make a great music video. And then they basically hawked the idea around all the artists they could find in the world. And for some reason, DJ Shadow said, yeah, okay, let's do it.
Interesting. And then the deck of cards you actually memorized, or the images, did you decide on those, or was it an actual shuffled deck of cards?
It was an actual random shuffle deck.
Okay. Nice.
We did 4 decks, I think, on the day.
Okay.
We recorded the memorising bit a week and a half earlier, and I went through and described the images, and they picked the one they liked best. And they had, I think it was literally 10 days to go through and arrange costumes and props and everything.
Yeah. And are all the images accurate to you, or are they somewhat made more generic and less specific?
I changed a lot of them. I mean, a lot of them were like copyrighted characters, fiction.
Oh, like the Street Fighter. Yeah.
I just simplified things a bit,
Yeah.
But it still came out very close in the video to what actually happens in my mind.
Got it. And where did they film that? Was that like an abandoned mall?
Yeah, it was an abandoned clothes shop, I think, in a shopping centre in Wales. We go around the old storerooms, and there's escalators, there's coloured lights and things. It all looked very good.
Yeah, I love it. It's good. That's cool. So then what's up with you now? What's your plan, right? So you're working. You didn't make it to the championship last
No, I couldn't come to the World Championship last year. I just haven't got any money. I still haven't.
It's so far, I know. It's a lot of money these days to get out there.
It is. But I can't complain. I've just come back from a week and a half in China, paid for by a TV show.
Oh, that's right. The Superbrain.
Yeah, the Brain. Right? Not only did I have the week in Nanjing filming this thing, the Brain, they also paid for me to go up to visit my brother in Harbin in northeast China for 3 days as well.
How cool.
Which was awesome. And, but I'm still waiting for them to pay me the fee for that show because I'm sort of flat broke at the moment. But when I get that, I'll be in one of my rare phases where I've got just a little bit of money. So, nice. Good. I'll put a bit of that aside. I'll make my way to the Extreme Memory Tournament this year.
There you go. Yeah, so you're playing...
And Memoriad in November in Las Vegas.
Yes. Yeah, I'm excited about that.
I love Las Vegas. It's my favourite place to go on holiday. I've not been there for a good few years now, and I can't wait to go there again for a memory competition yet.
Right? In under the context of a memory competition, Vegas doesn't get any cooler,
That's right.
So you are planning to be at the XMT, provided you qualify, which I think you will.
I don't know. We're 4 weeks out of 5 into the qualification at the moment. I did unexpectedly badly in images and then unexpectedly badly in numbers as well. I'm in 12th place. I really need to get a solid words performance just to scrape under the wire here. So, fingers crossed.
Yeah,
if I don't qualify, I think I might come along and watch the XMT anyway, but I'd much rather be there as a competitor.
Yeah. We'd love to have you again. And then the Memoriad, and then hopefully, are you going to try to go to the World Championships? I think it's in Singapore.
Yeah, it's planned for Singapore at the moment, but frankly, I don't think they've ever managed to settle a proper location for it before May at the earliest. So we'll just have to see where it turns out to be. But one way or another, I'd like to go along. Yeah. I'm not in training for it, unfortunately. I haven't been for a long, long time. But it's really, when it comes to World Championships nowadays, it's about going along, having fun, memorising what I can still remember how to memorise, and just hanging out with all of the competitors.
Yeah, that's the best part, honestly. There's so many interesting people, and it's nice to see those same faces every year, you know?
Yeah. And there's whole new generations coming along now. There's new.
Yeah.
I've not been to that many memory competitions just lately. I'm feeling a bit out of touch with all the new young bugs coming along with it.
Yeah. But it's funny that the competitions in Singapore, I got on the bus to go back to the airport, and Tony Buzan came on board, and all the Chinese people there were like worshiping him. And I said, Tony, do we know where the competition is next year? And he looked at me like, he was like, in his way that he does, and he said, where else would it be? Like, he was offended that I asked, and I was like, oh, so it's in China again. He's like, of course. And then he left. He flipped his scarf or whatever and left. And then now it's in Singapore, so I don't know.
He always says that.
Yeah.
Every year at the World Memory Championships, ever since I've been going to them, they've always said it'll be same place next year.
Yeah,
it never
true.
is.
That's funny. So I want to talk about the Superbrain or the Brain Show. How was that again? Who was there? It was James Patterson there again?
James Patterson was there, but he wasn't one of the British team. He brought one of his students, a young boy called Henry.
Okay.
I had to struggle and think of the name there. His dad's called Mark, the boy's called Henry. I would think of Mark Henry, the big weightlifting wrestler.
Okay. Yeah.
I just tried to remember which one's Mark and which one's Henry. But yeah, young boy called Henry. And we also had Marlowe Knight, who's like top British competitor at the moment, and Robert Fountain, who's one of the top British mental calculators. He was there in last year as well.
And what was your task this year? Can you tell me? Or no?
My task this year was really cool. It was defusing bombs.
Oh,
we had
that's cool.
100 explosive devices marked with 4 different coloured tapes. And half of them you have to cut the blue wire to defuse it, half of them you have to cut the red wire.
Oh, no.
So we had to memorise which ones were which, and then they laid them all out in a random sequence. And my opponent started at one end, I started at the other. We had to race along the line, cutting wires until we met in the middle, and whoever got the most right was the winner.
That's cool. And so I guess that's kind of like a binary task then, yeah?
It's more of just a basic numbers thing, really.
Okay.
There were 10 different colours of tapes, so it was memorising.
Okay. Got it.
It was just memorising 100 different numbers, just 50 actually, because you just had to remember the blue ones and know that any one you didn't recognise was red. So
yeah, okay. And
it's
then
simple stuff, really.
Did you win?
I lost.
I know. You exploded.
Blown up, yes.
Got it.
It's a shame because we did 2 trial runs of it beforehand, and I won both the trials in the rehearsal, but he beat me on the night when it counted.
That's good, yeah. That's what happened to me. I had 5 trials, and I had to memorize that maze thing, and then finally the last one, I won, I think, 3 out of the 5, and then we did the real one on the show, and I lost.
Hey, these things happen. I kept saying to everybody there, I didn't actually care whether we win or not. We're just going there to have fun and compete. But the Chinese TV people were saying, no, you have to be fierce. You have to be, go Team Britain. We will crush our Chinese enemies.
Yeah.
So we did all that for the cameras, but it was all about just having fun. My opponent, young Chinese man called Su Ching Bo or something very similar to that. But he was all the time saying, I can't believe I'm meeting Ben Pridmore, the great legend. And of course he beat me hands down in the end. So just go to show, never meet your legends.
That's funny. Yeah. Do you, I forgot what I was going to say. I guess before that, touching on what I said at the beginning, like in terms of like how that person reacted to you, you have this thing about you. I don't know what it is. I guess it's because you've been around so long, but I don't know. Dominic's been in that way, and I don't think he gets the same fanfare as you do. Like you're known kind of by anybody who gets in the sport, and it's a weird thing, but you must love it, right? It's great.
Yeah, it's good. I blame the hat personally.
It could be the hat. Yeah, that's right.
It's because I'm the one with the hat. That's how I became well known at the start in memory competitions. It's a sort of distinctive icon that people can fixate on. If like me, you can't remember people's faces, you can always remember the hat, and so that's how I become so memorable.
And your T-shirts, right?
And the T-shirts, yes. I'm wearing obviously an Extreme Memory Tournament T-shirt tonight, but As I think you said in your blog brilliantly, who else is going to go along to the competition wearing T-shirts saying things like "I'm huge in Japan" or "I am from space"? I see that my T-shirts are much looked forward to by people.
Yeah. My there's a documentary a friend did about my thing, and it was mostly covering 2012 World Championships. And every time they show this, just a shot of you wearing the "I'm big in Japan" or like what's the other one? What do you have? You have "I'm big in Japan" or was there
I am from space.
I'm from space. That's the one. Yeah, everybody would laugh. It was really good. Quickly, what's your
compared to Sheldon Cooper, which I think is very flattering, but he has a great range of T-shirts as well.
That's from The Big Bang Theory, yeah.
Big Bang Theory, yes.
Yeah. What's your all-time favorite memory championship memory?
Oh gosh, there's so much to choose from. As I said, World Championship 2003 was a great one. 2007, 2008 were also fantastic. Those were the 2 years it was in Bahrain, I think it was.
Okay.
We had a lot of fun at those ones.
That's
the
cool.
2010 World Championship in China was also a great time for all of us. There's been so many competitions, it's hard to...
Yeah, you've been. How many have you done, would you say?
Sorry?
How many have you competed in, would you say?
I have no idea. I don't keep count of... I never know these. The person you have to ask is Boris Conrad.
Yeah, he knows.
Because he always knows these things. And whenever at a competition someone comes up to me and says, what's the standard for this, or what's the world record for this, or what happened in... I say, I don't know. Go and ask Boris. He always knows these things. So.
Yeah.
But I think I've competed in more memory competitions than anyone except Boris. That's the record I have now. Okay. But I don't remember the one number it is.
We'll find it out. I'll look on the stats page. A couple more questions and I'll let you go. This one. Do you have any ideas for getting faster at speed cards?
Well,
personally, you don't have to share them. I'm just curious if you have an idea and you maybe want to play with it.
I wish I did. Really, all I can do is... I know if I get properly in practice, if I'm doing speed cards on a regular basis, I'm around the 20-second kind of mark. Yeah. And that's as fast as I think I can get. But, my only idea when it comes to these things nowadays is to keep practicing, keep getting a little bit better. Yeah. I know a lot of people are becoming stupendously fast very quickly.
Yeah.
It's funny. I always say that once one person has set a benchmark, once somebody's done a pack of cards in 40 seconds or 30 seconds or something, everybody else can get to that point so much more quickly because now they know it's possible.
It's crazy.
I've seen this all over the years, and now we're getting down to 17 seconds or something.
Yeah, but the thing is, I was talking about this at the championship. What you just said is exactly on point, but there's an added thing, is that people who have been in the game for a while, it doesn't make it easier for us to get to that point. Necessarily. It's easier for the new people to start and get to that point. We're so ingrained in our ways and the mindset of I can do a deck of cards in 25 seconds, that to suddenly say, oh, now I can do it in 18 seconds, it's like, I don't know.
I know, it's I'd love to know a way to get around that. I've thought of going and seeing a hypnotist and having a sort of
just
blank out my brain or something like that. But I'm too sceptical about hypnotism now because I don't believe that properly exists either. But perhaps one of these days someone will convince me. Someone will come up, swing a watch in front of my face. You're feeling sleepy, and then bang, just like that, I can memorise a pack of cards in 15 seconds.
Yeah. Damn, we got to find that guy to do it to us. Last question: is there a comeback hiding within that hat? Is it coming back? Is Ben Pridmore going to be a world champion again?
I would love to be world champion again. I'm turning 40 this year. Okay. I'm getting old, I would like to be able to prove that that your brain doesn't actually die out as you get old.
All right.
And I think it was Phil Ash said to me, I won the world championship in my 20s, in my 30s. I could be the first person ever to win it in my 40s as well.
Every decade.
A whole sort of 3 decades. So that is a target, but I need to overcome the whole motivation thing. And the whole everybody being better than me thing. That's a pretty big thing I have to overcome.
Yeah, there's a lot of...
If I can find a way to do it, I will try to be world champion again.
All right, well, I'm rooting for you. I would love to see you back on top. It would be a very cool story, and it would be the awesome ending to your book. Right?
I don't like the idea of reaching the ending, End of part 1 of the book, maybe,
Yes.
and then we go on to greater things. And then when I'm 97 and winning the World Championship for the 93rd time, it'll be held once a year, obviously, by that point.
Yeah.
Then that could be the end of the book.
Win once a decade and you're good. Well, all right. Thank you for your time, Ben. It's been an honor. I love hearing your stories. I'm sure you have a million more, but I can't keep you for more than the time that I have here because people are going to stop listening. But or maybe
listening
not.
to me ramble. I hope some of it made some kind of sense to someone.
Definitely. Yeah. So we hope to see you at the XMT, and thank you again for your time. Ben Pridmore, everyone.
Thank you.